the 1930s America, when the Jim Crow law with racial segregation was still being enforced, and the Ku Klux Klan was still rearing their ugly heads to suppress the African American community in the southern states, a pair of identical twin brothers, Stax and Smoke, returned after an infamous stint with Chicago mobster Al Capone to their hometown in Mississippi Delta, hoping to set up business which will aid them as well as their family and friends. The brothers had their fair share of foes and friends, but their ruthless manner to deal with people in this perilous period was a means of survival, and you had to get on board or fall along the wayside. After purchasing a large sawmill, which they converted into a joint to serve alcohol, playing music that religious folks deemed to be blasphemous, and other illicit affairs, they meticulously recruited individuals around the town whom they felt suitable to fill roles like cook, bartender, bouncer, and performers. Little did the twins realize, aside from a contingent of KKK plotting and scheming to pull down the establishment, there was another threat of a supernatural essence. Sinners is director Ryan Coogler's fifth movie, which all had participation with his longtime collaborator Michael B. Jordan taking the dual roles of the twin brothers. In his debut movie, Fruitvale Station, which was a biographical film chronicling Jordan's character, Oscar Grant's final 24 hours before being slain by police in Oakland, California. The single-day motif might be replicated here in Sinners. 2 years after the critical success of his debut feature film, Coogler and Jordan were recruited to make a spin-off of the Rocky franchise about Jordan's characters Adonis Creed trials and tribulations as a professional boxer after a childhood missing his biological father, Apollo Creed. For the movie Creed, Michael B. Jordan trained aggressively for the role and took up boxing like duck to water, and made 2 sequels without Coogler and himself directing the latest sequel. The ability to display action alongside his dramatic acting led Jordan to many memorable action features after that, including what we saw in Sinners here. Creed was another win for Coogler critically and financially, meaning he was the ideal directing choice for Black Panther, about the Prince of Wakanda and a member of the Avengers in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Michael B. Jordan would be cast in the villainous role of Eric Killmonger and was memorable as a supervillain without crazy superpowers. The duel between Killmonger and Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther, highlighted the caliber of top-tier young African-American actors even for a superhero movie. The conundrum suffered by our protagonist when fighting someone you regarded as a brother will be seen here in Sinners as well. Coogler's follow-up film would be Black Panther's sequel, which Jordan had a cameo. Sinners from Coogler felt like a classic gangster film of the time period, with a strong emphasis of the blues music, with co-producer Ludwig Göransson and his wife Serena meticulously created and curated. You cannot blame me for not being exposed to many blues and its subgenre until it evolved into R&B in modern times. That said, I really enjoyed the music created for this movie and how Coogler melded each song to rouse tension or foreshadowing the ongoings on the background, and what to expect from such ongoings. From the start, Preacher Boy Sammy had been warned by his father, who was the pastor of the church, to give up the music that would be a conduit to the devil. The part when he was in a trance and lured souls that transcended time and space could be like a hallucinogenic trip, yet it was a real highlight of the movie for me. The part with Remake and his brood performing the Irish bluegrass as an act of defiance to the people holding fort in the mill was a nice touch as well. Although the time period and location do not match up, the whole feel of the Mississippi Delta with the dusty town, the rustic train station, and the cotton field reminded me a lot when I was playing Red Dead Redemption. The myriad of colourful characters we were being introduced with certainly made it feel like a game environment. I could spend hours listening to the likes of Jordan and Haley Steinfeld in the role of Mary, speaking with the southern accent and cadence over trivial things. Even if Sinners was just a period drama of the rise and fall of a pair of identical twin gangsters trying to take wind of their land against law enforcers, rivals, and the Ku Klux Klan, it was still a fantastic movie to sit through, but he will imbue that supernatural element which skewered it into a genre filmmaking, and it worked immaculately as a commentary on the disconcerting racial tussles of that time period and still relevant in our contemporary times. I have heard complaints abound about how boring the first half of the movie was. Man, I think it was a lost cause talking excellent filmmaking and storytelling to you who are likely to seek out gore and jump scares on a whim. The movie that instantly drew a stark comparison for me was Robert Rodriguez from Dusk Till Dawn, a single-day event with a climatic showdown between a band of characters warding off a coven of blood-hungry creatures of the night in a single location, which was a place to sell alcohol and entertainment in the middle of nowhere. From Dusk Till Dawn, starring one Quentin Tarantino. And the ending sequence with what Smokes did with the KKK certainly felt like a revenge porn that Tarantino would do in his movies like Django Unchained and Inglourious Basterds. In the prologue, Ryan Coogler did not shun away from telling the audience something sinister was going to happen that would alarm the patrons of the church. Even when remake sought refuge from a group of Choclaw hunters, we did not know it was going to go into the supernatural route until the native Indian hunter told the owner of the house what he and the audience were to expect. Beside the church, which of course was a place for community to rely upon more than just spiritually, the only other supernatural part prior to the took refuge scene was Annie, Smoke's estranged wife, who was a hoodoo practitioner and would be the key personnel to the realization of the attack of the creatures of the night. The screenplay, written by Coogler, had intricately tied up every character's motive and action, and he used a race cut to lead to the infiltration of the attack of the vampires. There was tension brewing between the survivors when things reached feverish state, and this was a well-made genre movie at this point for sure. There was never an indication from his earlier films that Ryan Coogler was able to create such an atmosphere in the horror playground, but the final showdown between Sammy and Remick near the break of dawn was chef-kissed. With regards to the mid-credit epilogue, I was wondering what's the real intention of including it. Perhaps it was better to leave things up to imagination for the audience regarding the fates of some key characters. I must admit, I really enjoyed the whole ensemble of actors and their individual characters. I could certainly sense the difference between Stax and Smoke, with the former being a bit more diplomatic and the latter more straight-laced. But they did not have the good cop, bad cop routine, as both were equally scary. Michael B. Jordan once again oozed charisma on the screen, and I was certainly believed a pair of them could wage war against a whole coven of the undead. In the role of Sammy was a relative unknown, Miles Caton, whose real treat was his ability to sing, but still lacking acting gravitas for his distraught experience at the sawmill, but he was certainly not far from a decent actor in the near future. The other headliner of the movie has to be Hailee Steinfeld in the role of Mary. She is a jilted white lady by Stax, who despite her status in the community, was not ashamed to cross the racial barrier. Steinfeld, who came into prominence as a child actor in the Coen's remake of True Grit, doing such period drama with an accent was nothing foreign to her. Bunmi Mosaku, who we last saw as the prominent member of the Time Variance Authority in both the Loki series and Deadpool and Wolverine, played Annie as we mentioned, dabbled in hoodoo arts, and was a stunning character to bank upon in the face of adversity. Delroy Lindo as Delta Slim, Omar Miller as Cornbread, and Jamie Lawson as Sammy love interest Perlin were all gripping supporting characters. Not forgetting the vivacious Grace Chow, played by Lee Jun Lee. In the role of the antagonistic Remick was Jack O'Connell, a name I had not heard in a while since his propel into prominence in Angelina Jolie's war biographical Unbroken, an Irish drifter who came into America with an actual thirst and was allured by Sammy's music, which seems to be spellbinding. O'Connor will next be seen in Danny Boy's 28 years later as Sir Jimmy Crystal. Even as I was informed from the marketing material that this was a horror movie, I was still taken aback on the direction Ryan Coogler had went into, as I thought the gangster element would drive the plot. It was a mesmerizing ride with solid performance all around, in the film made with great art in production values and the music that was important to the storytelling. Sinners is one of the most highly rated horror films of 2025, and I do concur with a rating of 9 out of 10 and will sure be in line for a rewatch before the year is up. As we entered into the summer season and eventually into the chilly autumn season, we are in line for more interesting horror movies with the above mentioned 28 years later being one of the most anticipated, so stay tuned to this channel for a review. Please click a like to this review if you can. Have you seen the most recent Asian Trips episode when I did review of Poison Sangha, Brahma Yugand, and Coming Soon? If not, please click on the insert video to check it out. In actual fact, there have been supernatural subplots in Red Dead Redemption with the expansion Undead Nightmare about a zombie apocalypse in the western setting, so whatever we've seen in Sinners was not awfully out of place.